a rule, if you like, that then governs the way in which the resources that you have placed and made available in the endowment are going to be used. So the endowment is actually also a rule. And when God endows us with our rights, what's he doing? He's filling us up somehow with a content. And I've noticed that many people have a hard time with this. What on earth can it mean that God endows us with rights? You know, he gives us rights. It's, sometimes they want to talk as if he's given us an apple or something, when a right isn't like that. It's not a tangible, material object, is it? No. So, Alan, what is a right? How can we make sense of it? Well, I think the first thing that you can do to make sense of it is to ask yourself a simple question, which will help us to think this through. We are all familiar with the Bill of Rights, in which certain things are outlined, where it said that the government shall not do certain things and shall not infringe upon certain activities, and so forth and so on, which are included in our Constitution now. I once got into a dialogue with a young lady. I think it was in New Hampshire at one of the gatherings I participated in when I was involved in the presidential race there. And at one point in our exchange and discussion, we came on to this question of rights, and she asked me why it is that I was always talking about the Declaration and unalienable rights. And I tried to explain it to her. And while we were having a little back and forth conversation, I finally looked at her and I asked her, okay, where do our rights come from? I asked her. And she gave an answer, by the way, that is quite common these days, especially among the miseducated young who have been indoctrinated in schools that are no longer willing to go back and take a look at our history. Because they tell folks that our rights come from the Bill of Rights, and that's what she told me. She said, our rights come from the Bill of Rights. Our rights, therefore, come from the Constitution, right? And by the way, don't act as if this young lady is all isolated over there in her ignorance by herself because she was only in high school and stuff. Because if you ask most of our politicians and most of our leaders all the way up and down the line in America where our rights come from, they too will try to tell you that rights come from the Constitution. Rights come from God. Rights come from the decisions of the Supreme Court. But then a question arises. Before we had a Bill of Rights, before it was written, before it was put together and passed in Congress, and then ratified by people around the country, how did the people who sat down and said, okay, we need a Bill of Rights, let's set down these rights that government has to respect, how did they know how to recognize them? How did they find them? How did they derive them so that they could list them out and say, these are the rights we have? Do you have any idea? If you didn't know what the rights were and the Bill of Rights hadn't been written yet, how would you draw up a list of our rights? And you can't refer to the Bill of Rights. You've got to refer to something else because it doesn't exist yet. Well, see, I know that the founders of this country had a clear understanding, which is articulated in the Declaration. Think about our discussion of endowment. If you want to know what are the terms of an endowment, who do you have to ask? You could look at a document if one existed, but if you can't find the immediate document, but the person who actually gave the endowment is available, couldn't you go ask them? Sure you would. So if God has endowed our rights, who do you think has determined the content of those rights, what they are? God, obviously. A God-endowed right is determined by God. Its terms are laid out by God. So when the Declaration says we have God-endowed unalienable rights, what's it talking about? The key to finishing the logic is in the word unalienable. The word unalienable means that one way to explain it is often that you can't give it away, it can't be taken away. But it actually means what the word literally conveys. Break it apart. Unalienable, unable to be alienated. And alienated means to make something strange to me, to make something other than I am, right? So that it's no longer compatible with or capable of being part of what I am. That's what it means to alienate. That's why we use the term alien sometimes to mean.
Well, friend, that lesson, boy oh boy, let it just get deep down in your soul. Our rights do not come from the Constitution. Our rights come from God. All right? They're simply codified in the Constitution. And if our form of government ever becomes destructive towards those God-given rights, as the Declaration of Independence said, it is our right, it is our duty to alter or abolish government that is destructive to our God-given rights. I encourage you, go to our website, watch Dr. Key's entire speech, take advantage of all the free material that we have for you so that you can be part of the resistance.